Honorable members, pray be seated. This House now resumes its business.
Item 13, personal explanations. Item 14, motions.
Senator, the Honorable Ray Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I wish to present this motion standing in my name. It reads, whereas in his 2016 budget statement, the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Mitchell, Minister of Finance, announced that the Rivera Hotel is now being designed and that during the design phase, the investors have agreed to construct a new Camahon Park nearby. And whereas the government of Grenada is considering a proposal for a Rivera Hotel project on the Grandans Beach, and this project envisages the use of the Rivera lot and Camahon Park, and whereas climate change is a significant threat to small developing states such as Grenada, and whereas Grandans is particularly vulnerable to sea level rise as a result of climate change impacts, and whereas a key mitigation measure to address the negative impact of sea level rise is managing construction on coastal areas. And whereas the Tourism Master Plan of 1997 noted that Grandans Beach had reached its carrying capacity and explicitly discouraged the building of any more hotels on the beachfront, and whereas Camahon Park is a public facility that was deliberately established to address user conflicts between hotels, their guests, and the general public using the beach, and also to address the sentiments of locals that they were being alienated from use and equal enjoyment of Grandans Beach. And whereas 10 acres were recommended for the park, but only 2.5 acres were allowed in order to accommodate the construction of Koyaba and Alamanda hotels. And whereas the Camahon Park was constructed with the assistance of the U.S. Agency for International Development, and whereas Camahon Park, since its establishment about 25 years ago, has become an important recreational area and a hub for varied social activities, and an area that is used by both locals and visitors. And whereas Camahon Park is the lone public green space with beach frontage on the Grandans Beach, and whereas the importance of public green spaces has been recognized and promoted for the positive effect on spiritual, mental, and physical well-being of people, and whereas at the Camahon Park location, the public does not have to compete with commercial users of the area, and whereas a proposal has been made by the developer of the Rivera to relocate Camahon Park to a smaller area of 1.5 acres, and whereas the site for the proposed relocation does not offer beach frontage, since the site there is already established a restaurant and bar which is occupying the beach frontage, and whereas Camahon Park and Grandans Beach are national assets and form part of the patrimony of Grenada, And whereas the citizens of Grenada have a right to the enjoyment of the assets and patrimony of Grenada, and whereas the citizens of Grenada are collectively the owners of these assets and patrimony, and whereas the Constitution of Grenada protects the rights of the citizens to own property, and whereas the law of Grenada provides for the acquisition of private property for public use and not vice versa, for the acquisition of public property for private gain. And whereas the proposal by the developers will significantly reduce the park area and will deny the citizens of Grenada equal access through dedicated beach frontage to their world-famous Grandans Beach. Be it resolved that the Senate rejects any attempt by the government to remove Camarón Park from its present site, which will deny citizens of Grenada the right to use and enjoyment of their assets and patrimony, Camarón Park and its beach frontage of the Grandans Beach. Mr. President, I think the motion speaks for itself, and with your indulgence, I would like to highlight some important issues that certainly would lend to why Camarón Park ought to remain a piece of real estate that the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique must forever have at their disposal. Mr. President,
This motion is seconded. So,
Mr. President, I stand to second the motion.
thank you, Dr. George Vincent. Honorable members, the question proposed is that the motion standing in the name of Senator the Honorable Raymond Roberts be read a second time. Senator the Honorable
Yeah, Mr.
Simon Seal.
Mr. President, I seek to move a motion to amend the motion that has been presented by Senator Roberts. There are some significant inaccuracies within it. There is a lack of bias, a lack of balance, a lack of objectivity, and I have a number of amendments that I propose that we move to amend the motion as presented by Senator Roberts. I have those amendments. Okay, if I could circulate these, please. If that motion to amend could be seconded.
the motion standing in the name of Senator Roberts?
That is correct. Do we not need to second the motion to amend? Just go. Okay. Okay, then, Mr. President. What? Okay, Mr. President. Mr. President, I will run through, it'll be easier for me to run through the entire text with the proposed changes, and then in my discussion, after that will set the context, and then in my discussion, I can then go through some of the specific changes, how it differs from that of Senator Roberts. So I'll start with effectively, it is a new motion in its entirety. So whereas in his 2016 budget statement, the Right Honourable Keith Mitchell, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, announced that the Riviera Hotel is now being designed and that during this design phase, the investors have agreed to construct a new Camerhorn Park nearby. And whereas the Government of Grenada is considering a proposal for the Riviera Hotel project on the Grand Anse Beach, and whereas climate change is a significant threat to a small island developing state such as Grenada, and whereas the entire coastline of Grenada, as is the case with all small island developing states, is particularly vulnerable to sea level rise as a result of climate change impacts, and whereas a key mitigation measure to address the negative impact of sea level rise is minimizing construction on coastal areas, and whereas the Tourism Master Plan of 1997 may have noted that Grand Anse Beach had reached its carrying capacity, however, given the advances in technology and engineering design since that master plan, reliance would now be placed on an up-to-date environmental impact assessment. And whereas Camerhorn Park is a public facility set up for that purpose, where citizens can recreate and relax, and whereas the Camerhorn Park was constructed with the assistance of the United States Agency for International Development, and whereas Camerhorn Park, since its establishment about 25 years ago, has become an important recreational area and a hub of varied social activities, and an area that can be used by both locals and visitors. And whereas the importance of public green spaces have been recognized and promoted for the positive effect on the spiritual, mental, and physical well-being of people. And whereas a proposal has been made by the developer of the Riviera to relocate Camerhorn Park to a smaller area of 1.9 acres, in addition, the development of the vendors market, including the basketball and tennis courts, restroom facilities, and parking, a proposal that has since been withdrawn. And whereas Camerhorn Park and Grand Anse Beach are national assets and form part of the patrimony of Grenada and to which the citizens have a right to access, and whereas the original proposal as made by the developer would create positive conditions in respect of the right of work to create 600 to 800 direct and indirect jobs, contributing significantly to the expansion of the economy, contributing with the growth of new hotel room stock, with the addition of approximately 200 new rooms, contributing to increased tourism arrivals, contributing to increased foreign exchange, contributing in increased business to supermarkets and grocery stores, opportunities for small farmers, vendors, taxi drivers, and other local businesses. Positive contribution to the construction sector with hundreds of jobs for masons, carpenters, laborers, electricians, plumbers, painters, equipment contractors, and other tradespersons. An overall positive effect on economic performance, thereby reducing the unemployment rate and potentially increasing the number of workers represented by trade unions. Be it resolved that this Senate calls on the government of Grenada to continue to provide an enabling environment for the developer to make good on their proposal to develop the Riviera project as a standalone project for increased economic activity and the creation of more jobs and more opportunities for our people. So, Mr. President, this is the motion with the amendments included within the construct of the original motion as presented by Senator Roberts.
All right, but this is quite long and engaging, but does this amendment have a seconder?
Mr. President, I beg to second this motion as amended. But it's not amended, it's a new.
Senator Steele?
So, Mr.
Senator Roberts, you understand that their motion has been amended?
Yes, I want to speak about it a little later.
Okay. So could you just take us through the amendment?
Yes, I will. But, Mr. President, it's important for us to establish a context behind the motion as is now presented, and some background information which will explain the approach that has been taken to the motion and specific areas and considerations that have been focused on. Mr. President, the developer behind the Riviera project is the same developer who is currently constructing the Silver Sands Resort, also on Grand Anse Beach. Both the Silver Sands property and the Riviera property are both sites of former hotels. Mr. President, the developer is already demonstrating the significant value that they bring to our tourism stock, the contribution to our economic development, their contribution to creating jobs and opportunities for hundreds of Grenadians right there on the Silver Sands site. And we have a project that is accelerating towards completion. I believe the completion date is the beginning of next year or thereabouts. And what that final product will be is a world-class, 5-star luxury hotel resort. Again, employing hundreds of Grenadians now in the construction phase. Will employ hundreds of Grenadians, providing permanent, high-quality jobs on the completion and the operation of this hotel facility. The level of investment for Silver Sands ranges between 70 and 80 million US dollars. So making a significant impact and a project that is tangible there for all of us to see. Same developer has acquired the Riviera property, privately owned, privately acquired. The developer presented to government 2 proposals. Option 1 was for the development, the construction of a smaller hotel, fewer rooms, fewer jobs created, a lower level of investment, but limited to the acreage of that privately acquired Riviera site. But a project that still has significant value. The second option that was presented as part of their proposal was an expanded design. Expanded that would provide more rooms than option 1, more jobs, significantly higher level of investment, but it would require the expansion. That expansion would require construction on Camerhorn Park Camerhorn Park, as we all know, is a public space. As part of that option 2, the developer would create alternative recreational spaces, public spaces, with full access to Grand Anse Beach, able to serve, actually better able to serve the recreational needs of Grenadians and visitors currently afforded by Camerhorn Park. These alternative spaces, Mr. President, I'll just go into them in a little more detail. And again, this isn't reflected in the motion as originally presented by Senator on the other side. But the developer was proposing 2 additional recreational facilities. So Camerhorn Park, the proposal was the development of 2 spaces. The first is the site between where Umbrellas, the restaurant Umbrellas is, Koyaba Beach Resort, and the old SGU Grand Anse campus site. So just a 3-minute walk from the existing Camerhorn Park site. The area of these lands is just under 2 acres, so it is smaller than the existing Camerhorn Park, but just by a little bit. There is significant beach frontage associated with that property. The site, the proposal was to sensitively landscape that area. As it stands now, if you compare like for like, that site, I think they counted the trees, something like 22 mature trees on that alternative site, compared to 11 more mature trees at Camerhorn Park. The proposal was to re-landscape that area, provide world-class recreational facilities, the construction of gazebos, picnicking areas, barbecuing areas, a children's playground, washroom, restroom facilities, bandstand, car parking, adequate car parking. So to transform that area, as I said, into a world-class recreational site, far uplifted from what currently exists at Camerhorn Park. The proposal also included the redevelopment of the current vendors market, again, just a few minutes walk away from Camerhorn Park. So modernizing the vendor stalls, the vendor facilities, so that you could have, again, a first-class vending experience there, upgrading the washroom facilities, upgrading the basketball, tennis courts, providing spectator stands, etc. And again, providing additional parking for some 40 vehicles. In addition to that, 9 public access points have been identified along the Grand Anse stretch. The proposal also included the formal establishment of those 9 public access points to the beach. So the proposal in its entirety, Mr. President, for this option 2 was the construction of a 200-room hotel, including the Camerhorn Park site, an investment of some $200 million US, employment, indirect and direct, of some 600 to 800 persons, and then the creation of these 2 alternative recreational sites, the area, the acreage, when combined, far exceeding that of Camerhorn Park. The facilities provided significantly enhanced, a much better family and visitor experience than is currently enjoyed by Camerhorn Park. A managed management system in place to make sure that the upkeep, security of those spaces was ensured. And then finally, identifying these 9 additional public access points. So that was the proposal that was put before government by the investors, by the developers. But the developers have made the decision, to withdraw that proposal and to focus on their option 1, which is the development, standalone development, solely on the Riviera site. So, Mr. President, that was to give some background behind it. Now, if I could go through the motion that has been presented, and I just wanted to highlight just some of the points that were covered in the senator on the other side's motion that were either irrelevant, false, inaccurate, and the justification for the addition of certain clauses within that motion from our side.
Yes. Senator, just to bring the attention of members of the Senate and to yourself, just to ensure. On the Standing Order 31.3, 4A. So upon any amendment where you are now, either to leave out words as the case might be, we will need to take each one of those, and you would need to point out the words that you want to be left out and the words that you want to be put in, and then we will put the question on each one of those. I just thought I would give you that guidance. Before you were just dealing with the general merits of the motion,
Yes.
and that's okay.
Okay. So I can go through it item by item. So, okay, we'll do it. Each paragraph. So, the first paragraph, which is so, whereas in his 2016 budget statement, Dr. the Right Honourable, that opening statement remains unchanged. The second paragraph is changed, and it's changed as follows. And whereas the government of Grenada is considering a proposal for the Riviera Hotel project on the Grand Anse Beach, and that this full stop. So, and this project envisages the use of the Riviera lot and Camerhorn Park. That has been removed. The third.
1 second. So the words that are being left out from your amendment.
And this project envisages the use of the Riviera lot and Camerhorn Park. Yeah. Because that is factually incorrect. So that proposal has effectively been withdrawn.
The proposal to use the Riviera.
Camerhorn Park. So the option that the developer is moving forward with does not require the use of Camerhorn Park. So the proposal that is before government is for the hotel as a standalone property on the Riviera site.
Honourable members, the question proposed is that the words "and this project" in the recital, that is the second recital which begins "and whereas the government of Grenada." The question proposed is that the words "and this project envisages the use of the Riviera lot on the Camerhorn Park" be left out or deleted. Honourable members, the question is that the amendment in respect of the following phrase and this project envisages the use of the Rivera lot of Camohan Park be struck out. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator Steele.
Could I also suggest that we actually record, so a formal division on each, for each amendment that is proposed, if that could be recorded for the House?
Hello? Well, he's requesting a division. I don't know why. Honorable members, this vote can either be taken by secret ballot or by your show of hands. The chair wishes to be advised. We take this for speeding up the process with a show of hands, or members are insisting on a secret ballot.
I suggest, well, certainly from our side, a show of hands.
Senator Roberts.
Mr. President, I just want to inquire here. This is a completely different thought. I'm only hearing things that are new. I'm basing my presentation on the 2016 budget. So I'm asked to accept amendments that I'm now hearing about, that the project change and so forth. This motion is a year old. It's a year old. And I don't mind the show of hands because I'm voting against it. That is a misrepresentation of our committee and the motion.
Well, Senator Roberts, 31.3 says that an amendment to a motion may be moved and seconded at any time. So the motion is now before us, has been, in accordance with the rules, effectively amended. What I'm trying to solicit is we can either vote by the show of hands or by secret ballot. And I wanted to find out, I wanted to get a consensus on this. And since there seemed to be no one objecting to a show of hands, because a division was called for, then we will proceed along those lines. Those in favor of the amendment, show by the raise of hands. Those opposed to the amendment, show by the raise of hands. The amendment is carried. Senator Steele.
Okay, paragraph 3 remains unchanged. So that is climate change, and whereas climate change is a significant threat to a small island developing state such as Grenada. So that remains unchanged. Paragraph 4, there are changes. So the original read, and whereas Grand Anse Beach is particularly vulnerable to sea level rise as a result of climate change impacts, is changed to, and whereas the entire coastline of Grenada, as is the case with all small island developing states, is particularly vulnerable to sea level rise as a result of climate change impacts. So the rationale behind this, Mr. President, is rather than just singling out, if we are looking at this holistically, why are we just singling out Grand Anse Beach? Our entire coastline, as with all small island developing states, are vulnerable.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the words, and whereas Grandans Beach is particularly vulnerable to sea level rise as a result of climate change impacts, are to be deleted, and to be inserted in its stead is the following phrase: and whereas the entire coastline of Grenada, as is the case with small island development states, is particularly vulnerable to sea level rises as a result of climate change impacts. So the question proposed is that there is a deletion of the current phrase to be replaced by what I have just read. It's the question proposed. Okay, there don't seem to be any interventions here. Honorable members, the question is that the words, and whereas Grandans Beach is particularly vulnerable to sea level rise as a result of climate change impacts, to be deleted and to have the following words inserted: and whereas the entire coastline of Grenada, as is the case with all small island development states, is particularly vulnerable to sea level rise as a result of climate change impacts. The question is that these words replace the original words. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. Could we just have a vote? Those who are in favor? Hello? Yes, so those in favor. Those opposed? So we have 2 opposing and 5 in favor. So that section is as amended. Senator Steele?
Paragraph 5 remains the same. And whereas a key mitigating measure to address the negative impact of sea level rise is minimizing construction on coastal areas. So there is no change there. Paragraph 6, there are significant changes. It originally read, and whereas the Tourism Master Plan of 1997 noted that Grandans Beach had reached its carrying capacity and explicitly discouraged the building of any more hotels on the beachfront, that this, Mr. President, be replaced with, and whereas the Tourism Master Plan of 1997 may have noted that Grandans Beach had reached its carrying capacity. However, given the advances in technology and engineering design since that master plan, reliance would now be placed on an up-to-date environmental impact assessment. So those are the proposed wordings and the rationale behind it. The Tourism Master Plan is a 20-year-old plan. It is not an environmental assessment. It is a very general document. Technological advancements over the last 20 years have been significant. Science has refined. Best practices have also have improved. What may have been acceptable back then isn't acceptable now. So if you were to go through that 1997 master plan, I'm sure there are a number of areas that you may identify that would say are unacceptable now in 2017. So the proposal, Mr. President, is that as part of the planning process and the approval process of the Riviera project, that a detailed, modern, best practice environmental impact analysis be carried out, looking at the specifics of the area, looking at the specifics of the design and the function of this development, applying technologies that are available today that weren't 20 years ago, and practices that may have been acceptable then but are not acceptable now, that is fitting for a world-class tourism resort that is built, constructed, and operated under the auspice of a project that is sustainably developed. So, Mr. President, the wording change is to move away from that 20-year-old plan and focus on a up-to-date environmental impact analysis and following the guidelines of that assessment.
Mr. President.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, there's no doubt about it. Technology provides us with a wide range of new opportunities, so we're not blind to that. What is being attempted by this amendment is to undercut the relevance of the information in the original motion by defocusing Grandans Beach. Grandans Beach had specific attention. Read the master plan. It tells you why. It tells you why. This here, it's an elaborate use of Shakespeare drama to captivate the audience so that they can get a sense that, look, we recognize it and we will treat with it. But I'm saying we want the Grandans Beach to be emphasized. That's why this motion focuses on Grandans Beach, not the entire country. So I regret, Mr. President, as it is here, I can't accept that amendment.
That the words following the word...
Sorry, Mr. President, there's some questions on our side. Is the intention that we're able to have a full debate, paragraph by paragraph? So
Yes, well, the rules require each amendment to be addressed.
And to be debated, so other members can speak to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I believe there are members on this side who wanted to comment before you put it to the House.
Well, that's why I paused to look, but I saw no light.
Mr. President, with respect to
Senator David.
With respect to the amendment, I think the amendment addresses the issue. As I understand my friend who moves for the amendment is saying that the master plan that was done in 1997 would have made an assessment based on 1997 technology, 1977 information, things that were known in 1997. What the amendment says, not that we shouldn't do anything, that we should just throw it out. I think the language which says that we are throwing out the master plan information is that the amendment says, however, given the advances in technology and engineering design since the master plan, reliance would now be placed on an up-to-date environmental impact assessment, meaning that with the new technology, the new information, all of what we now know, back in the 90s and the 80s, there were all kinds of doomsday scenarios. You couldn't do this, couldn't do that. Now with the advanced technology, there may be, and I don't think the member is saying that the impact assessment will say, okay, go ahead. But what we're saying is do a new environmental impact assessment so we can determine whether or not it is the proper thing to do. So he's not saying throw out the information from the I'm sure all academics and persons who are involved in these things would agree with that. In fact, if this government were to do a project now without an up-to-date environmental assessment, you would hear everybody crying out, have you done a survey? Have you done this? In fact, when the Silver Sands was being done, the question was asked by the other side, have you done an environmental impact assessment? No, we could have gone back and say, well, the 1997 master plan did that. No. what he's saying and what the member who's moved this amendment is saying, let us do the proper thing. And with respect to the issue of when this motion was written, a year or so ago, well, we are moving the motion today. And history will record us acting on information we have today with respect to the proposal having been withdrawn. If there's no proposal, how can we ask the government not to consider a proposal? So I want to express my deep support, both on a matter of principle and a matter of procedure on this issue, this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator David. Any other senator? Senator, the Honorable Brenda Hood.
Yes, Mr. President. I'm just here to say that this government understands the importance of EIA, which is the economic impact assessment, and if we don't do it, it creates a lot of problems.
Could you just speak into the mic a little bit more? You may have to just repel yourself.
I'm saying that economic impact assessment, EIAs, are very critical towards the development of any project that you do here on the island. And projects that are being done on the Grand Anse Beach, you must do an impact assessment before you give permission to do it. This is what we have been doing for years. As a matter of fact, I just want to say that when we were constructing the bus terminus in town, we were told the bus terminus and the mall in town, the cruise ship terminal, we were told not to do it. We were told we should not do it because Grand Anse Beach will be flooded. This is what we were told. Today, we look at Grand Anse Beach, and it hasn't flooded. This is why it's important for us to, when we are making these pronouncements and statements, that we understand what we do. What we have done over the years is to create employment for the people of this country. If we had listened to the people who were criticizing us in terms of, and I know because I was a minister for tourism then, we were not going to have a cruise ship terminal. We were not going to have all of these cruise ships that are coming here on a regular basis and the economic impact that it's making on the economy. So I think that we, sometimes a government may come up with a decision in terms of a development of a project, and the other side, because they are not the ones promoting it, they are very critical. But I want to assure you that every one of us here, in this, especially on this side, would not sit back and see a country be destroyed just because we want to create employment for our people. Because at the end of the day, when we leave this world, we want to make sure when we leave it, it's better than we met it. And therefore, we will not support the destruction of our beaches here on the island.
Thank you, Senator Hood. Senator, the Honorable Winston Garvey.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to give my support to the amended motion that is before us. And as we've been saying, and you rightly would have shared with us as it relates to Standing Order 18, that whenever we're presenting questions or so to the House, we need to ensure that if it's a statement of fact, we have to verify the fact. And I know a lot's been said as it relates to the tourism master plan, talking about Grand Anse Beach has reached its carrying capacity and expressly said that no more hotels should be built on the hotel, on the beach. I have the tourism master plan before me, Mr. President. And there is nothing in the tourism master plan that expressly said what was said or is captured by the member. So I'm wondering which plan is he reading? So if we are to be honorable and factual, we have to state the facts. The closest it came to talking about carrying capacity is said about Grand Anse. The Grand Anse is crowded, but there is nothing to talk about Grand Anse Beach itself exceed its carrying capacity. And you're looking at Grand Anse in terms of, and you have more than one beach in Grand Anse. What is important now for us to realize is that we are living in a changing time. And I'm looking forward to really debate this motion when the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Garvey. Honorable members, the question proposed is to leave out the following words: noted that Grand Anse Beach had reached its carrying capacity and explicitly discouraged the building of any more hotels on the beachfront. The question proposes to leave out those words and in its stead insert the following words. Given the advances in technology and engineering design since that master plan, Reliance will now be placed on an up-to-date environmental impact assessment. Honorable members, the question is that the words noted that the Grand Anse Beach had reached its carrying capacity and explicitly discourages the building of any more hotels on the beachfront to be struck out and to be replaced with the words, given the advances in technology and engineering design since the master plan, Reliance would now be placed on an up-to-date environmental impact assessment. Excuse me. Just let me reread this again. Honorable members, the question proposed is that the words noted that the Grand Anse Beach had reached its carrying capacity and explicitly discouraged the building of any more hotels on the beachfront, as contained in the original motion, be struck out and be replaced with the following words. May have noted that Grand Anse Beach had reached its carrying capacity. However, given the advances in technology and engineering design since the master plan, Reliance would now be placed on an up-to-date environmental impact study. Those who are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Could we, those in favor, show by the raise of hands? That gives us, Mr. Clerk, with 4. And those saying nay? 2. Senator Steele, next motion. Or next recital in the motion before us.
Okay, so paragraph 6, Mr. President, to be removed completely. So it is, and whereas Camerhorn Park is a public facility that was deliberately established to address user conflicts between hotels, their guests, and the general public using the beach, and also to address the sentiments by locals that they were being alienated from use and equal enjoyment of Grand Anse Beach. So it's to remove that. Mr. President, there is full access along Grand Anse Beach. Our beaches are public. They are not private, and any action that is taken with regard to the development of the beach frontage along Grand Anse Beach, as with any beach in the state of Grenada, remains public. And as I outlined in my introduction, there are 11 public access points along that stretch. So in addition to the 2 recreational areas that the developer was proposing, whether it is the area between Koyaba and the old SGU campus site, or the vendors market, or the 9 public access points in between, or the beaches in front of any of the hotel properties or private properties along the beach, are all public. So, Mr. President, it was felt that the concern and the language used in this particular paragraph was more inflammatory than accurate.
Honorable members,
Mr.
the
President.
question proposed is to delete the words, whereas Camohon Park is a public facility that was deliberately established to address user conflict between hotels, their guests, and the general public using the beach, and also to address the sentiments by locals that they were being alienated from use and equal enjoyment of Grandlands Beach, that entire section be deleted and be replaced with the following words. And whereas Camohon Park is a public facility set up for that purpose where citizens can recreate and relax, I'm a bit lost.
It was simply to remove paragraph 7
and to replace it with paragraph, whereas Camohon Park is a public facility?
Yes. Yes. Yes, that's correct.
Honourable members, the question is
Mr. President.
that the following words of the original Senator Roberts, sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Let me put it first and then
Okay.
you will have an opportunity. That the following words in the originating motion being that was deliberately established to address user conflict between hotels, their guests, and the general public using the beach, and also to address the sentiments by locals that they were being alienated from the use and equal enjoyment of Grandlands Beach, that these words be removed and be replaced with set up for the purpose where citizens can recreate and relax. The question is that the words referred to in the original motion be deleted to be replaced by the words set up for that purpose where citizens can recreate and relax. Senator Roberts.
Mr. President, clearly my case can be rest. I think the honourable gentleman, Senator, amending the motion, do not have a clue of Grandlands Beach, do not have a clue of the people of this country, do not have a clue of the people of South St. George. In fact, one of our most distinguished local hoteliers who worked on that Camohon Park, in one of his discourse, one of his writings, clearly made the point, and I could testify to the point, having born in Grandlands, having grew up in Grandlands, I could understand hotels having a protective area for their guests. I could understand it. I have great respect for it because clearly those of us who born on that beach, sometimes we have activities that may not be in line with what a hotelier wants for his guests. And as the goodly gentleman said in his discourse, that in the 1980s, when it was conceived, it was to address an area where there were just 3 hotels on Grandlands Beach: Rivera, Holiday Inn, Spice Inn, and also Silver Sands. Those were the 4 hotels. And I can tell you, we used to sell hats, We used to go there and sell all sorts of things in front and perhaps be a little distracting to the guests and the hotel owners. And he's right. Cameron Park gave us that opportunity where we can have fun the Grenada way, barbecue, make fun and frolic. That is the specific use. That is the Grenada culture. So to say that it's inflammatory to suggest that, I think the presenter really missed the mark. Why do you see people from Grandlands Valley run through the lines? In fact, at 6 in the morning, I'm sure I'm not mistaken, I don't go there, I go high up. But I see the distinguished president and his friends there, and some of them walk up the beach. I don't see them in front of a particular hotel. And it's not that they are barred from going there, but it's a tradition that we believe that, look, this is a hotel, this is perhaps what the hotel desire. So we don't want to encourage people to go in front of any other hotels and be of distraction. The park provides the perfect space for ordinary people. In fact, August gone, Carnival period, there were more than 13,000 people there over a 6-week period. I didn't see them in front of a hotel. So it has to serve a Grenadian purpose. It's like Barthway. So I rest my case. I think the person making the amendment really has missed the mark, Mr. President.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Are we referring to the part which says, and whereas the Cameron Park is a public facility set up for that purpose where citizens can recreate and relax? Mr. Chairman? Mr. President?
Yes.
Is that the section of the amendment we're addressing?
Yes. In the original recital.
I know there were many more things were said, but this one says, I just want to be clear, and whereas Cameron Park is a public facility set up for that purpose where citizens can recreate and relax. Am I correct, Mr. President?
Yes.
Well, I was just wondering because my learned friend on the other side seemed to be suggesting that that is what the park was for, and this is what the amendment said is agreeing with. So it's agreeing that this is a public facility set up for the purpose of persons, as indicating barbecuing and so on and so forth. There's an agreement. So I'm not sure if my colleague is disagreeing to something we agree on, which seems to be a favorite thing these days. You agree on something, but you disagree on it. I support the amendment primarily because it says in much less words what that long paragraph seemed to want to say by going into much more issues about conflicts between hotels, because it's not conflicts between hotels. The member on the other side just said that we tend to not want to go in front of the hotels by our own free will. So, of course, I agree with that people tend to want a space, and that is why we on this side agree that that space will be used in an unfettered manner and was intended for the purpose of our people having unfettered use of Grandlands Beach. I live in Grandlands too. My father has been going to Grandlands Beach for the last, he's 94 now, so maybe the last 90 years. And he's never complained to me about the use of Grandlands Beach. Of course, as we develop, some people, we are not used to development and change. It's one of the features when we grow old, Mr. President, that change comes in a difficult way. But I agree with the amendment that basically to the point that it's a public facility set up for the purpose of our citizens recreating and relaxing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. That the words that was deliberately established to address user conflicts between hotels, their guests, and the general public using the beach, and also to address the sentiments by locals that they were being alienated from the use and equal enjoyment of Grandlands Beach be deleted, and in its stead the following words be substituted. Set up for that purpose where citizens can recreate and relax. All those who have that opinion, just show by the raise of hands. There are 5. Yes. All those who are opposed to that amendment, show by the raise of hands. There are 2. Senator Steele, next amendment.
Okay, so paragraph 8, Mr. President. So the removal of the statement, and whereas 10 acres were recommended for the park, but only 2.5 acres were allocated in order to accommodate the construction of Koyaba and Alamanda Hotel. I mean, what wasn't, Camerhon Park is 2.5 acres. 2.5 acres is what has been provided. So going back and say, well, it should have been 10 acres, it should have been 20 acres, it could have been 30 acres, it could have been 5 acres, it could have been half an acre is kind of irrelevant, Mr. Chair. So the amendment is to remove that statement. It doesn't add to the point that the motion is trying to make.
Honorable members, the question proposed.
President, can I just...
Yeah, well, let me just propose it, and then the question proposed is that the recital, which begins with, and whereas 10 acres were recommended for the park, but only 2.5 acres were allocated in order to accommodate the construction of Koyaba and Alamanda hotels, be struck off altogether.
Thank you, President. President, just briefly, let me say that. That section, that recital, as you call it, is there specifically to indicate that the government of Sir Eric Matthew Gary, the PRG, and whoever before that, valued green spaces, valued recreation for the people of South St. George and Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. So that is included to give emphasis and thought to the process that there were thinkers before us, and those thinkers saw the value of recreation for the Grenadian people in what you may call the economic belt now of the nation. So we use that to emphasize it, and unfortunately, I cannot support the amendment.
Honorable members, the question is that the recital in the original motion which reads, and whereas 10 acres were recommended for the park, but only 2.5 acres were allocated in order to accommodate the construction of Koyaba and Alamanda hotels, be struck off altogether from the motion. All those who are in favor of that amendment, show by the raise of hands. I'm counting 5. All those opposed, show by the raise of hands. I'm counting 2. The motion has been carried. Senator Steele.
The following 2 paragraphs 9 and 10 remain unchanged. So, and whereas the Camerhon Park was constructed with the assistance of the United States Agency for International Development, that remains unchanged. 10, and whereas Camerhon Park, since its establishment about 25 years ago, has become an important recreational area and hub of varied social activities in an area that is used by locals and visitors, again, remains unchanged. And if we just go back to the previous point that seemed to be a point of contention for the senator on the other side, all of what I believe the sentiment that he is trying to achieve in that paragraph that we had removed is captured in what we replaced it with, and these 2 subsequent paragraphs that have remained unchanged. So who it was who assisted in the establishment of the park, but more importantly, that paragraph 10 remaining, and it recognizes what I think the essence of what Senator Roberts is trying to achieve. Camerhorn Park, since its establishment 25 years ago, has become an important recreational area and a hub of varied social activities, and an area that is used both by locals and visitors. So I believe, Mr. President, that, as I said, that the sentiments are captured in here, and what we have is a much tighter motion. Then we move on to, so 9 and 10 remain unchanged. 11 is to be removed. And whereas Camerhorn Park is the lone public green space with beach frontage on the Grand Anse Beach. That statement is not correct, Mr. President. So it is removed. The site that was identified between Koyaba and the SGU campus is a green space leading onto the beach, Mr. President. So that statement is not correct. And then the vendors market too, Mr. President.
Honourable members, the question proposed is that the recital, whereas Camerhorn Park is the lone public green space with beach frontage on the Grand Anse Beach, it is proposed that that entire recital be removed in the amended version to the motion. Senator, the Honourable Ray Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, to you again, the presenter of the amendment is missing the point. He's missing the clarity of the whole thing. In the vendors market, that's a business area, hustle and bustle. Dozens of taxis are parked there when a cruise ship comes, or cruise ships. The church is there. That's my church. That's where I go. It's one of the most popular churches in Grenada. Cars are parked all about there. Funerals are there almost 4 or 5 days a week. How could you call that a place where people could go and recreate? It's a hustle and bustle place. Let's go down to the second area in front of umbrellas. That's a restaurant. That's a place of activity totally taken up by adults. It's not a place for children. I have been there. I've seen it there. That's where adults go and have fun. The only place where children can be nurtured, birthday parties are held there. You go there on Saturdays. It is Camerhorn Park. That's why we say it's the only green space where we speak about the spiritual, the mental, and the physical well-being of people. On mornings, every morning, there are elderly citizens there from 5:30. There are elderly citizens there. You can't do it in front of the vendors market. You want to disturb the church? They have discussions and just about everything, from religion to politics. In front of umbrellas, I don't know how the beach is protected by the restaurant, so you really can't see much of the beach unless you go in front of the restaurant. So again, Mr. President, sad to say, the attempt to defeat this motion in words and language has failed. I think the Grenadian people will see through that the objective is to rid people of that area, and eventually, as the Prime Minister said, nobody uses the park. We're making noise because of politics.
My dear Mr. President, my friend misses the point again. His words, Camerhorn Park is a lone green space, mentions nothing about children, mentions nothing else. It is an factually incorrect statement. He may not like the area. And the amendments are not asking for the removal of Camerhorn Park. I know the member would love for the public to believe that we are saying here, take Camerhorn Park. We are saying, protect Camerhorn Park. We are accepting the use of Camerhorn Park. We are saying that there is no proposal on the table as we speak about Camerhorn Park. What we are saying, and I know the member on the other side, this is his ace in the deck. And here we are deflating the entire thing by saying it is not an issue. So I understand that the member has to stand and make that speech. So I know it's a prepared speech. It's like you try to punch a man and he move and you fall down. It's really, you didn't get time to respond. So let us see what we have here. The amendment says, that it's not the only green space. It's not the only one. Access. And whereas Common Park is the lone green space with beach frontage, it is not true. It is factually incorrect. There is the frontage here and the frontage there. And Comohon Park, it is saying we have 3 places. Comohon Park, the place by umbrellas here, and the vendors market area where a lot of us go, where you go. I really regret you treating the vendors market area as if it's not a place where, because all the people from Kafibo Hill and those persons who you intend to make your constituents, they all congregate there. So to kind of treat them as if that's not an area that the public goes is really to negate your own knowledge of the area. So again, it is factually incorrect, member for representing Labour, that it's the only green space. And what is being done is, in fact, if anything, you should credit the member here for strengthening the arguments that you've put forward. And I suggest that at the end of it, we say thanks to Senator Steele for doing an excellent job in having this say what you wanted it to say. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Honorable Winston Garvey.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I stand to give support to this amendment, and I would quickly like to advise my colleague on the other side. We have had a very long I wanted to touch his soul at this moment, not with the fire now. Because we have had a long history of going back and forth with a number of things, and I want to say to him, he cannot be myopic with his views and his vision. I heard he said a number of things here, and he knows factually it is not true. Let us break it down bit by bit. And before I go there, I am disappointed that this motion is what took the center stage. And I thought, with all the questions and so on that was brought by the brother, the senator, he would have at least bring a motion to this House in support of the public officers who were in a drawn-out salary negotiation with government. And he said nothing to speak to his constituents, the workers of this country. But you come with something here, and you're right, to push it. I agree. But I thought your first order of business should have been to support the workers in the struggle. You didn't do that, so you lose marks there, and if I am them, I'm going to really pull you up for that. But let's go back to the motion here. I think we have lost an opportunity, because really and truly, the redevelopment of the space that is called Comohon presented to this nation and to the young people of the South and around the country an opportunity to have an upgraded facility that will give them more opportunities to excel and to have fun, as you seem to be claiming that they will lack. It's not true. So the redevelopment would have given new access to opportunities to bandstand, new green spaces, fun area for children, safe area, new bathroom. I mean, more parking. I am wondering why you think the way you think, but you have a reason. Let's move now from right here down to the vendors market. It's true, yes, you're right. Large congregation, church, cemetery, and the likes. But have we ever considered the chaos when we see a funeral? No organized parking. When there is a cruise ship, again the chaos. We had an opportunity, Mr. President, to remodel the vendors market and give it the set of ambience that it deserves, welcoming of our international visitors. Most importantly, I think, would have enhanced the set of service of our vendors, because giving them that set of prestige, giving them that developed facility would have put them up a notch. It also speaks to, Mr. President, the redevelopment of the recreational facility, the basketball court, the tennis court. Let's look at it right now. It's dilapidated, my brother, fellow senator. You know that. We had an opportunity to fix that and to put in something that we don't have right now, restroom facilities. It's a loss, but that's what it is. It also means that the government listened, because you say, and you lead a group saying, we don't want no development. But I think it's much more than development, Mr. President. I don't really think the member is against the development, It seems to me against it happening under this administration. I don't think you're against our young people getting employment, I don't think you're against that because you support that in some other debate. But you're against it happening now. Why? Is it because if it happens now, you loses that opportunity you think you so have to become the representative? I mean, come on. The people, and mind you, Mr. President, that's not far-fetched, Because the member came right here and said that if the two leading parties in this country looking for a good candidate, he's available. He said so. A good candidate, he said he's available. And he called on the two leading political parties and said, I am available. So if you're looking for a good candidate, I am available. So it's not far-fetched that his motion is tied up about his selfish desires. It's not about the people. It's about you. And I think it's time we reach to the place to realize that serving the people is much more than serving just yourself. But the scripture talk about it. He said when you serve others, and you know that, when you serve others, you serve the Lord. That's what you do. But when you think about yourself only, you're going to fall in a ditch. So I'm inviting you. Stop being myopic. And Mr. President, what this amendment is saying here to us, that the space comma HON will always be maintained for the people of Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique, and all the visitors who we will invite to come into our country. Secondly, that access to the beachfront is much more than one. And it's wrong to say one green space. It's not true. The beachfront is the property of Grenadians, and I will use your favorite phrase now, the patrimony of Grenadians, the beachfront. No one can take this away. So it's wrong to say the last green space is being removed. That's not true. The space comma HON will always be maintained for the people of this country. I thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Winston Garvey. Honorable members, the question is that the recital, whereas Camahon Park is the lone public green space with beach frontage on the Grand Anse Beach, be struck off altogether. All those who are of that opinion, say aye and show the raise of hands. So I take the vote once. I'm counting 5 on this side. 6. Those of the contrary opinion say nay and show raise of hands. I'm counting 2 on the other side. the motion to strike off the recital, whereas Camohon Park is the lone public green space with beach frontage on the Grand Hands Beach, has been so struck off. Senator Steele.
So, Mr. President, paragraph 12 reinforces it, although we've just removed an untruthful statement that Camohon Park is the only green space. It's just factually incorrect. 12 remains unchanged, which is, and whereas the importance of public green spaces has been recognized and promoted for the positive effects on the spiritual, mental, physical well-being of people. So what the senator who's supposed to be representing Labour is trying to get across, and we're doing this in a very piecemeal manner, is that this side is not supportive of green spaces, is not supportive of locals and visitors being able to enjoy and recreate in these spaces, and we have no interest in protecting and recognizing the importance of green spaces. That's what the senator on the other side is trying to imply as we go through these amendments, but it's just not true. So if you look at those statements that remain or have been strengthened, speak to the need for spaces for our people, the need to preserve and to protect, the importance of green spaces. It's saying all of that. What we are removing are the unfactual, untruthful statements, and those statements that don't bring any value to what it is we are trying to say. So, Mr. President, 12 remains unchanged. The importance of green spaces has been recognized and promoted for the positive effects on the spiritual, etc., etc. So that statement remains. Paragraph 13, however, we remove because it's a false statement. And whereas at the Camohon Park location, the public does not have to compete with commercial users of the area. That is not true. When I go to Camohon Park, the amount of KFC boxes I see when I visit...
Excuse me,
yeah.
One moment, Senator Steele. Camohon Park location, the public does not have to compete with commercial use of space. You are saying your proposal is that to be struck out?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I need to... you are still on that...
Yes,
You're still on that amendment. Okay. Right.
I'm still on that amendment.
One second. No, the one... No. The one before...
So thank you, Mr. President. So as I was saying, 13 will be removed because it states...
Could you read out what has been removed?
Yes. And whereas at the Camohon Park location, the public does not have to compete with commercial users of the area. So I'm assuming the sentiment behind this is it is a protected space. So those who operate within that are protected. But the whole of Grand Anse, entire Grand Anse belt is a commercial area. It is the most commercialized of any area in the state of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite-Martinique. So to make out as if Cameron Park within that, it affords that space some sort of commercial protection, just isn't true. As I said, if it's to protect the vendors, so the vendors have a free space with the handful of vendors in there to be able to operate, or there is no commercial activity. The Cameron Park, as I said, the amount of KFC boxes you find in there, so there's no protection of those vendors inside there. If it is not used for commercial activity, that isn't true. It is hired out. There are fetes, there are other recreational activities, commercial activities that take place there. Grand Anse is a commercial area, Mr. President. So this statement is wholly irrelevant and false.
Mr. President, thank you. I think he has misinterpreted what we are communicating. There's absolutely no doubt. You're correct. Grand Anse is the most highly commercialized area in the country. But we're talking about a 2.5 acres area where you drive your car in, you sit, you relax. I don't see any stores there. Somebody may pass with some nuts and some coconut water and so, but there is no Kentucky Fried there. There is no commercial activity happening in Cameron Park. That's what we are saying. Unlike the vendors market where you spoke about, and let me tell my distinguished friend that vendors market, I have relatives and so staying there, so I have them in very high regards. Umbrellas is the same thing. Those are commercial places where people sell on a daily basis. In Cameron Park, somebody passes through. You don't have to buy. You're really at your own pleasure inside it. And that's what we're getting to, that the 2.5 acres of land there, it is sort of free from any minute-by-minute distraction with people coming to you to buy anything. No, you go in front of the hotels. That's a commercial activity. You're going to compete, actually. You have guests, you have chairs, you have all these things there. Cameron Park, you come at your own leisure, and you leave at your own leisure. So I don't want you to get it wrong that we say in the area is not a commercialized area. We totally agree with you. What we're saying, in that little area, there is no serious commercial activity going there. And you may be right, we could perhaps redefine it to give it more specifics. But you clearly understand what I'm trying to get at, that Cameron Park is a place where you could be leisurely without the daily interference of somebody telling you, you're intruding on my space because I have to sell this, I have to sell that.
The question is that the recital with the following words, and whereas at the Cameron Park location, the public does not have to compete with commercial use of the area, be struck out altogether. Those who have that opinion say aye and show with the raise of hands. I count 5. Those of the contrary opinion show by the raise of hands. I count 1. The motion to remove that recital has been carried. Senator Steele.
Okay, moving on to paragraph 14. That's been reworded. The original wording was, and whereas a proposal has been made by the developer of the Riviera to relocate Cameron Park to a smaller area of 1.5 acres. That is replaced by, and whereas a proposal has been made by the developer of the Riviera to relocate Cameron Park to a smaller area of 1.9 acres, and in addition, the redevelopment of the vendors market, including the basketball and tennis courts, restroom facilities, and parking, a proposal that has since been withdrawn. So as I go through this, first of all, it is a correction. The original statement is completely inaccurate. The area that was offered as the alternative is larger than, it is almost the size of Camerhone Park at just under 2 acres. But in addition to that, the developer was proposing to redevelop the vendors market with all of the additional world-class facilities that were mentioned. But the important statement in this is the final statement, a proposal that has since been withdrawn. So what is being presented now is an accurate reflection of both what the developer was proposing, which is far more than Senator Robert was given credit for, but it also brings this discussion up to date, which is that the proposal from the developer to build on Camerhone Park has been withdrawn. So this is a proposed change to that particular paragraph, Mr. President.
Senator, the Honorable Ray Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just to say, Mr. President, we are delighted that our protests, our public reaction, the 15,000 people signing the petition, the 85% of Grenadians who want to see the park remain where it is, we are delighted that at least somebody has listened to us, although we are not convinced. What we perhaps will convince us is the government signing a document indicating that it shall not, as long as it has life, facilitate any commercial activity on that area. But I must say, Mr. President, I can't argue with that. And to you, to Senator David, I mean, we are delighted that the idea to put the park next door to my church, and there are none staying in the convent, that was a terrible idea in the first place. And I'm happy that we have now, rationality has come into us, and we have realized that this is not a good thing. But one thing, Mr. President, let me make a point of that. I want to suggest, I urge the government to take up the challenge, as Senator Garvey just highlighted, the basketball, netball, and tennis court, the tennis court where I play, in a terrible state. So that is an opportunity for the government to refurbish an area that is proximity to the public road and certainly needs a facelift. So I would trust, Mr. President, that that aspect of the project continues, because all it will do, it will enhance the area. And the area that Senator David highlighted, Coffee Bow, I'm sure when they look down on that area, if the government was to do that, I'm sure, Senator David, you, yourself, and me, and everybody would have nothing else but high praise for the administration.
The recital and whereas a proposal has been made by the developer of the Riviera to relocate Camerhone Park to a smaller area of 1.5 acres, be withdrawn and be replaced with, and whereas a proposal has been made by the developer of the Riviera to relocate Camerhone Park to a smaller area of 1.9 acres, in addition, the redevelopment of the vendors market, including the basketball and tennis courts, restroom facilities, and parking, a proposal that has since been withdrawn. Yes. So, that recital is being amended by adding the following words. In addition, the redevelopment of the vendors market, including the basketball and tennis courts, restroom facilities, and parking, a proposal that has since been withdrawn. So the proposal, the question is, honorable members, that the recital remains, but we take a deletion from the word 1.5 acres and make that area of 1.9 acres in addition to the redevelopment of the vendors market, including the basketball and tennis courts, restroom facilities, and parking, a proposal that has since been withdrawn. All those who are of that opinion say aye by the show of hands. To the contrary opinion, say nay by the show of hands. No. So Senator Roberts, you're saying you don't want that development? Hello?
Mr. President,
No, I just wanted to be clear.
No, I want to
I'm a
see.
bit lost.
I want to see empirical evidence.
You want to see something built on it to confirm that?
Empirical evidence of what?
I would want to see the literature where the investor has withdrawn, his proposal.
Okay, I've registered 2 no votes. Senator Steele.
Okay, 15. And whereas the site for the proposed relocation does not offer beach frontage, since on the site there is already established a restaurant and bar which is occupying the beach frontage. So to remove that, there is beach frontage, there is significant beach frontage there. So this statement is incorrect. That is for the Umbrellas site, and there is significant beach frontage in front of the vendors market. So the proposal is to remove that statement altogether.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the recital, and whereas the site for the proposed relocation does not offer beach frontage, since on site there is already established a restaurant and bar which is occupying the beach frontage, be removed altogether.
Mr. President, I strongly stand by what is in the original. I just want to say to you, and I think Senator Steele knows that, he used to be a regular on the Grand Islands Beach there. In front of the vendors market, there are about, I would say altogether, 100 and 200 chairs. So you can't consider that the chairs are rented. It's a business that is carried on there. So quite clearly, we can't remove them, because we know we can't remove them because it's a business people carry on there. So you can't consider that as beach frontage where people can boldly go and recreate. In Come-On Park, the space is there. You could do many things without intruding on the business that is being operated in front of the vendors market. And I think perhaps that should be preserved for them to do the business. It's a business. So I understand what he's saying. Yes, you can see the beach, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being uninhibited. You are uninhibited in Come-On Park. You can run straight into the water. You have, as I said, to compete with taxi drivers, with tourists, with everything in front there. I'm there. I could talk about there. Don't tell me, no, I'm there nearly every morning. So I know what I'm saying. So I agree you could see the beach. What I'm talking about is the accessibility for people who would like perhaps to sit in the park, have a chat. In front of Come-On Park, you don't have the challenge that you have in front of the other places.
Honorable members, the question is that the recital, and whereas the site for the proposed relocation does not offer beach frontage, since on site there is already established a restaurant and bar which is occupying the beachfront, be struck out altogether. All those who have that opinion say aye with a show of hands. To the contrary opinion say nay with a show of hands. I count 2 nays and I counted 5. I counted 4 yeas. So 4 years is 2 noes. Senator Steele.
Okay, Mr. President, to save time, the paragraph 16, recital 16, which states, well, it's actually the following 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And whereas Camerhorn Park and Grand Anse Beach are national assets and form part of the patrimony of Grenada. And then you've got 17, which is, and whereas the citizens of Grenada have a right to the enjoyment of the assets and patrimony of Grenada. And 18, and whereas the citizens of Grenada are collectively the owners of these assets and patrimony. 19, and whereas the Constitution of Grenada protects the rights of its citizens to own property. And 20, and whereas the laws of Grenada provides for the acquisition of private property for public purpose and not vice versa, for the acquisition of public property for private gain. These, Mr. President, the proposal is to delete those, but then they are wrapped up in an amended statement, which is, and whereas Camerhorn Park and Grand Anse Beach are national assets and form part of the patrimony of Grenada, and to which the citizens have a right of access. So it is believed, Mr. President, that this one statement, and whereas Camerhorn Park and the Grand Anse Beach are national assets and form part of the patrimony of Grenada, and to which the citizens have a right of access, covers those 4 or 5 other statements that are made that are clumsy, that are repetitive, that are not as distinct as this one very clean statement. So as I said, the proposal is the deletion of 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, with the replacement of, and whereas Camerhorn Park and Grand Anse Beach are national assets and form part of the patrimony of Grenada, and to which the citizens have a right of access, captures all of those other statements, Mr. President.
Honourable members, the question is that the following recitals, and whereas Camerhorn Park and Grand Anse Beach are national assets and form part of the patrimony of Grenada, and whereas the citizens of Grenada have a right to the enjoyment of these assets and patrimony of Grenada, and whereas the citizens of Grenada are collectively the owners of these assets and patrimony, and whereas the Constitution of Grenada protects the rights of its citizens to own property, and whereas the law of Grenada provides for the acquisition of private property for public purpose and not vice versa for the acquisition of public property for private gain, to be condensed into a single recital which says, and whereas Camerhorn Park and Grand Anse Beach are national assets and form part of the patrimony of Grenada, and to which the citizens have a right of access. Senator, the Honourable Ray Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, our motion gives step-by-step explanation. It gives a sense of why we are going about the motion in that manner, and it certainly helps the ordinary man to understand and to appreciate this is his, this is hers. We have collective ownership. This short version here, to me, is an attempt to stifle the openness of this motion. The 5 sections, recitals as you call them, they certainly give life. They give teeth to what we are trying to see. This one paragraph, seemingly cut short, it's really a Dr. Schaff knife to really hide the ill of what, to me, we are trying to do here, to create an atmosphere that The motion takes away from the government ability to provide jobs and to provide opportunities for Grenadians. I want to repeat it again. We are all for jobs. We are all for investments. But this Camawan Park is a patrimony that Grenadians are enjoying, and we must preserve it. The business can be taken to anywhere else in Grenada, but we don't see the need for it on Grandlands Beach.
Mr. President, I want to stand to support the original motion put forward by Senator Ray Roberts. I have remained silent throughout this discussion because I thought it was an exercise in theater. Because, in my humble opinion, the two motions are different and separate, and if they had come to us differently and separately, I would support both. I see the motion put forward by Senator Roberts as focused on Grandlands Beach and Camawan Park. And the resolution which comes at the end of that is basically to protect the patrimony which Senator Garwe so eloquently recited earlier on. The amendment, Mr. President, in my view, is an attempt to water down the proposal put forward by Senator Ray Roberts, to dilute the focus on the Camawan Park, because of all the discussions I've heard here, we are just being told that the proposal was withdrawn. However, the need for Camawan Park to remain part of our patrimony and part of our heritage and part of our spiritual and recreational place is still important, despite all the water down we have seen. So, Mr. President, I want to say that I think we have really not done justice to this thing. And as a result, I have voted no on almost all of the amendments, not because I don't believe in them, but I believe the attempt is to water down the motion, to confuse us, and to make sure that the Camawan Park is not highlighted. Mr. President, this is my contribution to this bill. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Peter David.
Yes, my friend said he had remained silent. Obviously, he did not pay attention to everything, too. I thought that was the reason for the silence. The amendments were all dealt with specifically. The member didn't indicate where he agreed and where he disagreed. The member started by saying if they were brought separately, he would agree with both of them. And then went on to say one was theater and an attempt to water down. Mr. President, I think there were some very significant pieces of information that came out of the amendment. Even the mover of the motion himself said that when the amendment was written, when the motion was done, there was some information that was not available as it is now. And I appreciate that. But then when you move a motion and the information is not available when you write it, but becomes available when you're debating it, one cannot ignore the information that becomes available. That would be reckless and not a correct record of the state of affairs. So, for example, the member stood a minute ago, and I appreciated that, and said he welcomes the fact that the proposal has been withdrawn. Has the member who just stood from the opposition not heard that? That there was this very substantial, important piece of information? Is that an attempt to water it down? Or does that not make a significant difference, which my friend admitted the information makes? So, you see, I think, Mr. President, that we make politics of nearly everything in Grenada. And Comerhound Park has become a political football. And what has happened today has clarified in the minds of the public a lot of information. And I want to really praise the member, leader of government business, for, in his opening remarks, clearing up a lot of background. Clearing up where the genesis of this. It is not an attempt to water it down. Many of the paragraphs were accepted as they are. But those that we believe were incorrect or misleading or did not have the updated information that we have, we included. Now, if the member finds there's anything specific that he disagrees with, you know, the idea of the patrimony, well, in the new motion it says, and whereas Comerhound Park and Grandlands Beach are national assets and form part of the patrimony of Grenada and to which the citizens have a right of access. Was that not read and understood?
Vote no.
I mean, are you going to vote no to that? And then you speak about politics and theater? You ask for it to be treated as part of our patrimony, which our citizens should have access to. You asked for that. You said you had 85,000 people, or 85%, can't remember, 85% asking for this. Now you have it, and you call it political theater? No, Mr. President. I think, with due respect to my colleagues, that when something positive comes out of the government, you say it's positive. It reminds me when he says that he agrees with many of it, but he voted against it because it was watered down. You agree with it, but you vote against it. Does that not remind us of something? Does that not remind us of the referendum where some people said they supported everything, but we vote against it? What more politics can we ask? I'm saying, Mr. President, that this is an issue that concerns many people, and genuinely so. I'm not going to stand here and believe that. Some people were genuinely concerned about Comerhound Park. And we appreciate that. I appreciate that. Some members of my family are concerned, were concerned. But here we have the government making a statement that pleases you, but you don't accept it because... Is it not politics is the next thing I'm supposed to say? It's because of who brought it. It's the comment I heard on the other side in the referendum. You know, yes, we want constitutional change, but never under Keith Mitchell. Reminds me of the old debate. And my old friend remembers the independence argument. No independence under Gary. And you oppose that position. So, you know, I know you're still of that ilk, and I appreciate that and credit that, but I'm saying, Mr. President, I think the leader of government business has done an excellent job in tightening up the motion. All he did today, when we leave here today, Mr. President, the members on the other side, should be pleased that this side has acknowledged much of what is said in his motion, but of course, he will be displeased because it's seen from the lens of a politician who wants to use every single little issue that the government does to undercut the popularity of the government. So yes, invitational sports we support, but not now, too much money. You're against the invitational. You know, Mr. President, that good thing, my friend, you know, he does come eventually to acknowledge when he was wrong. And the last comment he made, that he welcomes it, but he wants the government to sign something. I know the government could sign. But he acknowledged that. And I think the member who just stood up, my good friend from St. John's, when he says that the motion done by my colleague was for protection of patrimony and totally disregards the paragraph in my friend's motion which says protecting is part of the patrimony, is doing nothing to enhance the debate, but merely rising, Mr. President, to show on the record that he opposed something that the government has done. That is all. I support the amendments, Mr. President, and I hope that all of our members in the House does, because it benefits all of us. Thank you, Mr. President.
And whereas Camohan Park and Grandans Beach are national assets and form part of the patrimony of Grenada, and whereas the citizens of Grenada have a right to the enjoyment of the assets and patrimony of Grenada, and whereas the citizens of Grenada are collectively the owners of these assets and patrimony, and whereas the Constitution of Grenada protects the rights of its citizens to own property, and whereas the law of Grenada provides for the acquisition of private property for public purposes and not vice versa for the acquisition of public property for private gain, that these recitals be deleted and condensed into the following recital. And whereas the Camohan Park and Grandans Beach are national assets and form part of the patrimony of Grenada, and to which the citizens have a right of access, be inserted. All those who are of that opinion say aye with a show of hands. To the contrary opinion say nay with a show of hands. I count 6 on the aye side and 2 on the nay side. Senator Steele.
Mr. President, so the next recital, and whereas the proposal by the developers will significantly reduce the park area and will deny the citizens of Grenada equal access through dedicated beach frontage to their world-famous Grandans Beach, it is to remove that statement. Again, that statement is not correct at all. The overall area of both sites exceeds that of Camohan Park. The facilities that are being offered or were proposed far exceeded what currently exists at Camohan Park, and the visitor experience would be far greater variety of attractions. Was it bandstands, gazebos, children's play areas, dedicated parking, washroom facilities, vending areas, etc., 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 landscaping, etc. So that is not correct. There is full access to the beach. As I said in the opening, you have access, whether it is through the vendors market, whether it is through the area between Koyaba and SGU. And the 9 public access areas that were identified that would be formally established. So 11 public access areas. So, Mr. President, the statement made is just not correct at all. So the proposal is for it to be removed.
Senator, the Honorable Ray Roberts.
Mr. President, just briefly to see that I stand by what is written here. Again, you know, the artistry of politics in Grenada has always fascinated me. I still have the greatest admiration for the late Sir Eric Matthew and the late Maurice Bishop. They were the masters of the art. And I have a lot of admiration for you, Mr. President. When you were here, I thought you were fantastic the way, and I could understand why you said you missed the rough and tumble. Well, let me put it this way. I could see some of that on the other side. But I want to beg the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique to trust me, because I don't have that ability to rumble and tumble. I wanted to say the same thing to my dear friend on the other side, the Reverend. But, you know, we have always had a problem with, you know, religions over the years, David Koresh, you know, the whole works of them. So, again, you may ask questions. But I'm saying, trust me on this. This is written here for the purpose of protecting what you know you are enjoying today. If you take this park to the basketball court area of the church, we're going to run into a problem. There's a cemetery there, 100 and something years old. My grandparents, they're all buried there. We're talking about the two areas that you're talking about is one by the Grandlands Church, one by Umbrellas. If you go to Grandlands Church, you're going to impact on the cemetery. I don't know why you're even thinking about that. To me, that is totally out of context. So I want to say to the Grenadian people, trust me, I'm honest. I am saying to you, believe in what I'm saying. Camahan Park, where it is, should remain as is.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Senator, the Honorable Winston Garvey.
Mr. President, I thought what is before us is clear and simple. Yeah. And simple in the sense that there is no twisting and turning with the language. It's easy for us to understand. But I've been thawing with the idea why my fellow senator on the other side is objecting to what we've just said here. Just to reword his motion and to give it the truthfulness that it rightly deserves, you know? Because a lot of things have been said in his original motion that is inaccurate. I mean, probably just stretching the truth a little. So you had to fix it. And this one you've just said, Mr. President, as he said, to move the common park to the basketball court and the Catholic Church. Repeatedly, he has been told and he has been shown pictures, this is not the case. And I'm wondering, how can I trust you when you repeatedly bring fake news? I don't understand. How can I trust you? The last time I heard a man saying to the nation when he couldn't present the financing for the budget, he said, trust me, and I will tell you where the money coming from. And he had to suspend, they had to suspend Parliament because he couldn't find the money. Because there was no money there. How could I trust you when you have repeatedly not really led me right? So it's much more than talking about and trying to be emotional here and saying, trust you. We make a joke out of it. But this is serious business. This is about the state. This is about the development of this country. This is about an honorable house that should be honorable at all times. And the information that is disseminated here should be correct. And it is not correct to say that the movement of the common park was to be relocated by the Catholic Church. That is not the case. And you know that. And I wish you would be honorable at your next rising will say, you made a mistake here. You just slip out of the tongue. If you want people to trust you, speak the truth. You have to speak the truth. If you want people to follow you, you have to speak the truth. And if you fail to do that, it will not work. Some people will follow you because they follow blindly. But I'm going to tell you. Again, I'll give you another portion of scripture. He said, if the blind lead the blind, they both will end up in a ditch. And right now, in as much as you have misled the people, you're not speaking the truth, you are blind. And I cannot follow you, I cannot trust you, because I'm going to end up in a ditch. So let us now speak the truth. The truth is, and let's reiterate, what was proposed was a redevelopment of the Space Comohon Park that will give people access to modern facilities. Gave them a green space with the entire beach frontage. That is what has been proposed. In addition to elevate the status of our vendors in the vendors mall by giving them modern facilities, modern amenities. Also, to upgrade the basketball and tennis court towards a site that is more pleasing than what it is right now. But as we've said, all those were withdrawn. And that is honorable language. Some other people will say something else, put it somewhere and smoke it or whatever, but I won't say that to you. I will say to you, just take it as it is. This is the truth. And you can trust me in that one.
Honorable members, the question is that the amendments deleting the recital and whereas the proposal by the developer will significantly reduce the park area and will deny the citizens of Grenada equal access through dedicated beach frontage to their world-famous Grand Anse Beach, to be replaced with the following. And whereas the original proposal as made by the developer would create, look, I have this right? Right. And whereas the original proposal as made by the developer would create positive conditions in respect of the right to work by creating 600 to 800 direct and indirect jobs, contributing, sorry. We're not replacing that.
No, that's just removed, and then we are adding. I haven't presented that final
okay.
paragraph as yet.
So the question is that the recital, and whereas the proposal by the developer will significantly reduce the park area and will deny the citizens of Grenada equal access through dedicated beach frontage to the world-famous Grand Anse Beach, be deleted altogether. All those who have that opinion say aye by the show of hands. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay by the show of hands. I count 6 ayes and 2 nays. Senator Steele.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. So there is then the addition of paragraph that I'm about to, the amendment I'm about to make, which really frames what it is this motion is one of the key tenets that should be a feature of this motion. So, and whereas the original proposal as made by the developer would create positive conditions in respect of the right of work by creating 600 to 800 direct and indirect jobs, contributing significantly to the expansion of the economy, contributing with the growth of new hotel room stock, with the addition of approximately 200 new rooms, contributing to increased tourism arrivals, contributing to increased foreign exchange, contributing in increased business to supermarkets and grocery stores, opportunities for small farmers, vendors, taxi drivers, and other local businesses, positive contribution to the construction sector, with hundreds of jobs for masons, carpenters, laborers, electricians, plumbers, painters, equipment contractors, and other tradespersons, an overall positive effect on economic performance, thereby reducing the unemployment rate and potentially increasing the number of workers represented by trade unions. So, Mr. President, if there is one fundamental omission from the original proposal that was presented by the senator supposed to be representing Labour, surely, Mr. President, it should be speaking about jobs, economic activity, opportunities for small and large businesses. All those small businesses, Mr. President, that are benefiting. You just look at, as I passed Silver Sands this morning coming in, a young lady, I think she's selling juice and saltfish and bakes to the construction workers. From that level, through to all of the tradespersons, just seeing the amount of activity that is there, the lives that are being shaped, the lives that are being changed, giving people, Grenadian workers, that basic right of employment, economic empowerment, economic independence. Where is that, Mr. President, reflected in the senator who is supposed to be representing Labour? Where is that in his presentation? Opportunities for masons, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, labourers. Opportunities for contractors supplying, hiring equipment to the site. Mr. President, we need to find a balance between our basic fundamental needs, the right to work, the right to economic empowerment. And we need to balance that against the environmental sensitivities. We need to balance that against our right to patrimony. We need to balance that with our heritage, our history, our culture. But Mr. President, the proposal that has been put forward, the proposal that has been accepted, that developers are working towards, as they are the same developer on the Silver Sands site that the senator who's supposed to be representing Labour also opposed. When we have an unemployment rate at 28%, far higher than it ought to be, lower than it was when we came into office, and the senator who's supposed to be representing Labour on the other side, who is supposed to be a champion for the ordinary worker, a champion for job creation. He has gone through every single paragraph in this motion and said no to it. Whether it is environmental sustainability, he voted no. He said no. Whether it is patrimony, he said no. Whether it's about access and green spaces, he has said no. I want to see what you vote now. Through you, Mr. President. Through you, Mr. President, I would like to see what the senator who is supposed to be representing Labour, I want to see how he votes on this. All we have heard is no. We've heard no to the Rivera project. Every amendment proposed, no. We've heard him in previous debates about Silver Sands, no. Last week, the Invitational, no. The referendum, no, and took great pride in voting no. No against the athletic stadium. No against the cricket stadium. No against Port Louis. No against the cruise ship terminal. As my colleague and friend on this side said. It doesn't matter what is done. Once it's under Keith Mitchell, the answer is no. And this, Mr. President, is the representative or the senator who is supposed to be representing labor, supposed to be representing workers. There is something wrong. There is something fundamentally wrong, where on this side we continue to push for progress and the creation of opportunities for our young men and women of this country. But all we hear is no. So, Mr. President, the sentiments of this amendment, this addition, which frames what the Riviera project represents, what Silver Sands represents, what other projects that are currently in play in this country represent, is about jobs and economic development. But the question is it being done in a sustainable, responsible manner? And the answer is yes, it is. But let us see, when you put this to the vote, let us see what the senator who is supposed to represent Labour has to say about this.
The Honourable Ray Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. You do not have to wait. There shall be another no. Absolutely no. Mr. President, as I listen to the presentation, it reminds me of the Good Friday Easter story. And I wouldn't take long, 30 seconds. You know, we all followed the Good Friday story. Jesus Christ, Judas, Peter with the cock crowing 3 times, Pontius Pilate, and Barabbas. Jesus was the good Samaritan. Pontius Pilate was very clear. He saw nothing wrong with the man, and he says to the public, who should I rid myself of? The public say the criminal, Barabbas. The public say Jesus Christ, the good man. And they choose Barabbas, who was a criminal. The point I'm making here, Mr. President, I am not here to follow the dictates of what is popular. You may be right. In my DNA, maybe no. But it's a no with objective that perhaps contravene everything that the workers so deny, so desire. Let me put it to you here. We have workers from the President's Union signing our petition. Workers from the NNP, the Prime Minister's party, signing our petition. Workers from the NDC, workers in general, and Grenadians of all walks of life. It is a people's cry. It is a people's cry and a people's passion that Camaron Park ought to remain Camaron Park. It has nothing to do with being against economic development and jobs. De La Source, now it's Sandals. They are in a corner. We support it. The workers of Grenada support it. But we wish the unions can go in there and unionize the workers. So we have a problem with that part, that where we seemingly are denied that opportunity. But we support opportunities for workers. And if you bring it, that project, somewhere else in Grenada, we will certainly endorse it. You'll have my vote. Let me tell you, one of the things that bothers me with what is here and what I'm seeing happening in Grenada is that we are slowly but surely creating a gated community in Grandlands Beach. Let's begin with the new transition we have at the end, at Johnny's End. That was free, that was leasehold. Uncle Gary never, ever sold any piece of land at the beach. Spicing, leasehold. I know who won it, Mr. Kushner. My uncle used to work there. Grenada Beach Hotel. Today, much of it, freehold. If it's freehold, you can't stop me from putting gates. You can't stop me from putting gates. And what you are doing, incrementally, is that you're cutting off the ordinary people from the beach. Camaron Park gives the ordinary people that opportunity to gallivant, to enjoy themselves. Carnival come, they free. You can't do that in front of a hotel. Nobody here nobody in this building, NNP, NDC, whoever they are, we are not against any development in this country. Your proposal will be excellent and will be championed by everybody in this country if that proposal omits Camawan Park. That's all we're saying. We're asking this government just to commit itself to the people. All this theater, it's a theater. This political maneuvering. And this thing about the senator, no. I have to say no. When I look at this picture here, a man who is painted in all kind of colors. You want me to support this? You want me to support this picture? This comes from GIS. I'm ashamed of this. A gentleman who certainly has a bad character, because that's what is coming over. You want me to support this because it's drugs. You want me to, come on. I think we ought to be fair with ourselves. Nobody in labor, nobody opposes the concept that the government wants to create jobs. All we're saying to you, let Camawan Park, the government, just commit itself. I heard the Prime Minister have him on tape. Prime Minister saying, nobody uses the park as politics. He said it didn't go off. I have it on tape forevermore. I don't know what you want me to believe. You come here now today, say the developer has committed itself not to have the project. I want to see the empirical evidence. It could be an utterance. And let me make one final point. Through you, Mr. President, to Senator Gawi. Well, unless you are an alien, the basketball court is less than 5 meters from the graves in the cemetery. So it's close to the Catholic Church. So what are you talking about? The vendor's market is less than 20 meters to the Catholic Church. So I am saying what you are proposing is next door to the cemetery and the Catholic Church. Don't tell me I'm telling tales. I'm speaking the truth. I invite the entire country to come and look at it and see what I'm talking about. All I'm saying, it is not appropriate for a replacement for Camawan Park. We have music, we have all kind of behavior there sometimes. There's church every morning there, sometimes in the evening. I'm saying you can't put it there. I don't care what the developer offers. You can't put it there. What I would say, we must fix that Grandans facility and make it the number one in Grenada, Carriacou, and PD Martinique. So, Mr. President, let me close by saying, I have absolutely no idea, I have no opposition to the government creating jobs. The only thing I'm here to do, to present a motion on behalf of 15,000 Grenadians who have signed, and another 10,000 wanted to sign. 85% of people, a survey was taken, say keep the park. That's my only objective. I agree with my fellow Senator George Vinson. Maybe if you came with a motion separate from this one, there are things in it without a doubt. They're not conflicting actually. But what you did, you are undermining this. You're taking the focus away from Camawan Park and you're confusing it with jobs. 800 jobs. A pity you didn't put 1,000. You don't know. This is just, it is friction. It is not empirical evidence. You don't know. It is just calling numbers. Let me get my book there. In this book here, the Prime Minister's address, 15,000 jobs. Do you see 15,000 jobs created here? You're writing numbers. So I say to you, I know you have the numbers, you will pass it. I am going to vote no on this motion because it does, on the amendment, because absolutely nothing there corresponds with what I am here to deliver on behalf of the Save Camawan Park Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, what we are here doing, as we say, the people's business, is to ensure that the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, and of course the entire world, have an understanding as to exactly what is happening in Grenada, life in Grenada as it is, providing service and benefits for people. The space Camawan Park has never been in question of being removed or taken away from the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, and for, by extension, the visitors who come here. So it is wrong to say that the space Camawan Park would have been removed. And just to get rid of this fallacy, the basketball court and the tennis court are existing facilities in a location close to the Catholic Church. It is there in a broken down state. What was proposed to upgrade it? So it's not right. Again, factually you're wrong to try to insinuate that Common Park would have been removed to the basketball court. It's not wrong. You have a facility that is dilapidated right now without restroom facilities. You're saying we're going to upgrade that. But let me get to the substantive point to this about creating jobs. What the developer would have proposed at the time was to build a hotel of 200 rooms, a 6-star. And for a hotel of that quality, 6-star, speaks to maid service no less than 3 and no more than 5 per room. So we use the lower figure. If you're looking at 3 per room with 200, it's obviously 600 direct jobs. If you're going to use the higher end of the ratio, 5, 1,000 jobs. But we use 6 to 800 because it's within that range or ratio. But further to this, Mr. President, this 800 direct jobs that could have been created, it's much more than just saying 800 jobs. Let's look at what the contribution of tourism to the GDP of this country. As it is right now, 2016, it was 5.38%. But we have to remember, tourism is much more, it's cross-cutting, it's much more than just a hotel or going to a restaurant. Let's look at the linkages. You have the farmers. We're talking about market for farmers. So if you bring a hotel that is 200 rooms, we're talking about you have to feed those visitors. And our farmers have opportunity to sell the produce. You're talking about the tour operators who will be going around with them. We're talking about the taxi drivers. You're talking about the vendors. You're talking about the fishermen. You're talking about those in the performing arts. It's cross-cutting across the entire spectrum. The point here is to give people more opportunity. I made a comparison, Mr. President, with countries of similar size to Grenada to look at what they're doing. If you look at St. Lucia, they're not much bigger than us. Where mainland Grenada has just over 1,800 hotel rooms, St. Lucia is close to 5,000. When we look at the properties on the beachfront, it's just about the same. When we look also at the opportunities for young people in terms of employment, they're gone ahead of us by far. When we look at airlift, if we want to increase our airlift in this country, we must have more hotel rooms. So what they have recently done is to open this Royal Town, a 352-bedroom hotel on the beach in Gros Islet. And they're boasting of so much amenities. And of course, with the airlift and the marketing, people are going there. Let's look at the benefits we have. We're much better than them. Of course, our tourism product is more diverse and is better than what they have to offer. But people are going there. Why? They have the rooms.
The safety and security.
But when we look at what we have here, Mr. President, the safety and security that Grenada offers, it surpasses the entire region. When we talk about the tranquil waters and the beautiful mountain range, the rainforest and the tropical flowers, and of course, the Mona monkey. The only country in the world to have it in its natural habitat is Grenada. The Leptotella welsii, our national dove, again, Grenada is the only country that have this in its natural habitat. Anywhere else, you have to go find it in a zoo. We have the amenities, we have the landscape, we have the product. What we don't have, Mr. President, is more room stock.
We're working on that.
And that is what needs to be done. That is what needs to be done to create more opportunities for young people for employment. So we have over 3,000 persons training in the Imanis, a lot of them into the service area. hospitality, as we talk about, because they know with the opening up of those facilities, there will be need for quality trained young people. When you're talking about vision, Mr. President, it's not just building in abstraction, You're building with an idea as to creating opportunities for your people. So we're training them now. So Silverstand will be open, and obviously, vehemently, the member was against it. Jobs, jobs are people. You have over 160 persons employed on the Silverstand at this point in time. But he was against it. And I was wondering. And don't tell me if this property was elsewhere, you'd have supported. You were against the one in Livera. Why? So it's not about location, It's about who doing it. But you had an opportunity before with the party you support, to do those things. And as much as a little thing as paying salaries you couldn't do, you think it would attract investors? Grenada is able to do that now because people now recognize that there is a government who understands what it is to create an environment for investment. So people come into this country because the environment is created. But we came into office, unemployment was over 40%. You had to find a way, Mr. President, to create that environment for our young people to be employed. We have moved the unemployment rate from over 40 to 28 at this point in time. It is still too high. But how can we change that? Creating opportunities, and one of the fastest ways to do it is by promoting and developing your hospitality industry, creating hotel rooms, and that linkage will ensure that our farmers will have a market. And we're talking about the rural economy. I mean, I'm so happy, Mr. President, only recently we went in St. Mark and launched a project there, shrimp farm. So this rural parish that one time they used to take like glee, they were gleeful in saying it's the poorest in the country. But that parish is changing. The dynamics is changing. The people are industrious and they understand, give me opportunity to work. And that's what we have done. And this, Mr. President, has the opportunity to change the entire landscape. So when we're talking about poverty and so forth, that is changing too. That is coming down. Because more people are getting the opportunity to be employed. I took a look at Singapore. They're not a big country too, 250 in terms of square miles. But let me say, they have a big vision. And they understand if they have to move the economy from where it was in the abyss, they had to create an environment where people will want to come in. Last year, how much you were thinking of in terms of tourism of arrival? 17 million. They didn't get that. But they understand to get this, you have to put in place a facility that will invite people to come over. So when you're talking about developing your tourism product, it speaks more than just hotel rooms. But creating, you're talking about the creative arts. So that is an area where people will come and want to see what we have. We're talking about our food. So when fish fry came up, and